All right, let's dive in. This isn't going to be some dusty lecture on Homer's Odyssey. Think of this more as a visual mind map, a breakdown of the actual storytelling toolkit Homer used to build his epic. We're here to give you the tools to not just get the story, but to really see the genius behind it and, nail those exams.
So, here's the big question, right? How does a story that's nearly 3,000 years old feel so immediate, so psychologically complex? Well, it's not magic, it's craft. Homer had this incredibly sophisticated set of techniques he used to play with time, to reveal character, and to stir up all kinds of emotions. Today, we're going to open that toolkit and see exactly how he did it. So here's our game plan for unpacking Homer's genius. First, we'll get into the power of the flashback and see how Homer messes with time and memory. Then, we're going to look at why direct speech is so dominant and how it's really the main engine for character. After that, we'll dive into the art of the simile, and finally, we'll pull it all together to see the complete artistic vision. First up, one of the most critical structural choices Homer makes, the flashback. And look, this isn't just about filling in some backstory. It's about shaping the entire meaning of Odysseus's journey. Homer just throws us right into the middle of the chaos. The fancy term is in medias res. We don't start at the end of the Trojan War. We meet Odysseus when he's a broken man on Calypso's island. And that immediately creates this huge sense of suspense. You're left wondering, where's he been? What on earth happened to him? The flashbacks are the answer, but they come much later, when he's ready to tell his own story. And what's so brilliant about this is how it creates this perfect structural balance. The flashbacks neatly slice the epic into two different worlds. On one side, you have these fantastical, almost unbelievable stories of monsters and magic. And on the other, you have the gritty, real-world political drama going down in Ithaca. It makes all the wild stuff feel like a memory, while the present feels immediate and very, very real. And these flashbacks are doing so much work. They don't just tell us what happened, they show us Odysseus as this master storyteller building up his own kleos, his reputation. They create incredible dramatic irony because we already know he survives all this, even as he's telling the stories. But, and this is key, it also makes us question him. Is he a reliable narrator? Is he maybe exaggerating a little to impress his hosts, the Phaeacians? He's literally crafting his own legend right in front of us. Yeah, the scholar Bacher just nails it here. These flashbacks are not just boring reports of what happened. Odysseus' story is a live performance. It's an active storytelling tool he's using to win people over, to repay their hospitality, and really, to define who he is after being lost for a decade. Now, let's look at what fills that structure, what gives it life. And that is, without a doubt, direct speech. If flashbacks are the skeleton of the Odyssey, then speech is its soul. Just look at that number. About 2/3 of the entire Odyssey, that's roughly 8,000 out of 12,000 lines, is direct speech. This isn't a narrator telling us about the characters. This is the characters revealing themselves, in their own words. It feels much more like a play than a modern novel. And this table just perfectly illustrates how versatile speech is in the epic. I mean, look at the nobody trick he pulls on the Cyclops Polyphemus. It's pure manipulative genius. But then you contrast that with him shouting his real name as he sails away, which reveals his fatal flaw, that deep-seated pride and desperate need for Kleos. His words both save him and almost get him killed. In this story, speech is action. And that's why this point from scholar Jasper Griffin is so important. He says, speech is the main way we get to know these characters. So if you want to understand Odysseus, or Penelope, or Telemachus, you have to analyze what they say, how they say it, and who they're saying it to. Their dialogue gives them a psychological depth that simple narration just couldn't. And it's so crucial to remember these conversations aren't just filler. They are the engine of the plot. The debates between Zeus and Athena in books 1 and 5, that's what kicks off Odysseus's entire journey home. That careful, tense conversation between Odysseus and Penelope in book 23, that's the climax of the whole epic. Without speech, the story just stops. Okay, so we've got our structure and our character engine. Now let's look at Homer's most vivid descriptive tool, the epic simile. This is how he paints these incredible pictures in the minds of his audience. So, what is an epic simile? Well, it's where Homer takes something huge, heroic, maybe even divine, and compares it to something totally ordinary and familiar from the everyday world. And the real magic is in that contrast. It builds this bridge between the world of gods and heroes and the world of, farmers and weavers and sailors. Okay, so let's look at one of the most famous examples. You have the great hero Odysseus, survivor of Troy, listening to a song about the war, and he just breaks down and starts weeping. How does Homer describe a moment of grief that big? He compares him to a woman, a war widow, watching her husband die while her city is being destroyed around her. In that single moment, Odysseus isn't a king or a warrior. His grief is put on the same level as the most profound, universal suffering of war. It's just a stunning, humanizing moment. And here's another powerful one. When Odysseus and his son Telemachus are finally reunited after 20 years, their weeping is compared to the overwhelming relief of a shipwrecked sailor finally reaching land. It's just the perfect way to capture an emotion that's too big for simple words. So why does Homer do this all the time? Well, first, it creates these incredible images for an audience that was listening, not reading. It gives the story emotional weight by connecting these epic heroes to everyday life. And for the poet performing this, it added some rhythm, a chance to really elaborate and keep the audience hooked. Okay, let's assemble the pieces. We've looked at flashbacks, speech, and similes. So how do they all work together to create Homer's complete artistic toolkit? And here it is. The flashbacks give the story its structure, building our sense of memory and morality. Speech is the engine that drives the drama and shapes the characters. And the similes? Well, they're the emotional anchors, providing the vivid imagery that makes the whole thing unforgettable. You see, they're not three separate tricks. They're an interconnected system. Ultimately, it's these literary tools that elevate the Odyssey from just a cool adventure story to a really profound exploration of psychology, of suffering, and of identity. This is exactly why we're all still studying it 3,000 years later. And that leaves us with a final thought to chew on. Homer's toolkit was revolutionary. But think about it. How do we see these exact same techniques, nonlinear timelines, character-defining dialogue, vivid comparisons, being used in the movies, TV shows, and novels that we all love today? Turns out, the ancient epic is a lot closer than you think.